Now, regular listeners of the show will know we love a used car story, don't we? And there are plenty of them. So Darren has been in touch. Now, Darren's actually a mechanic by trade, so he knows his way around a motor. So when he was buying his wife a second-hand car from a dealer in Yeovil, he felt he was doing everything right by the book, even taking out the extended warranty for peace of mind. Well, you guessed it. It wasn't long before Darren realised he'd got less than he bargained for.
Back in December, the engine management light come on. Now, it come on a couple of times through the car's life. One time I'd rung the garage, but they were unable to look at it. And they said, the mechanics said, just disconnect the battery and reset it. And I'd heard of that before. So I thought, drove the car down the road. It was absolutely fine. So it was just a little blip. Anyway, so the engine light come on, and I took it back in, and they had it for a couple of weeks, and I got a call to say, car's ready. I said, all right, what did you do? And they said, one of the items they mentioned was an inlet runner. I said, what was the problem? She told me it was carbon build-up. I was like, here we go. And I said, what's the bill? No bill, it's all under warranty. I said, lovely, thank you very much. Collected the car. And on the paperwork, they've said cleaned out the inlet manifold and the EGR valve. So anyway, I took the car away, and come the new year, booked the car in early for service, gave them plenty of time. And the engine light come back on again. So they added that to the list, and took the car in for the service, and they said it will be in for a couple of days. Anyway, I had a call midday to say the car was ready. And he said, but we can't look at the engine light. It has to go to the dealership that actually has the software to look at it. Just over a week ago, I got a call from the gentleman on the service reception, said it's not covered under warranty due to carbon build-up. You send me the bill, the estimate through. So they sent me the estimate through, had a look at it, and I went through my warranty booklet, but in the small print, it said carbon wasn't covered. To have a car that's done 16,000 miles and then breaks down and needs this amount of work, I said, would your garage not consider making a contribution towards the repair? And he said, well, I can speak to the directors for you. He said, what are you looking at? I said, well, how about if we go 50-50? Anyway, he said, I'll go and put that to him. He come back and he said, I'm not going to cover this. So he said, we've got no responsibility. It's funny, when I started to think about it, I think nearly £18,000 was spent on the car. £18,000 and 16,000 miles. You'd expect to get a little bit longer out of a car than that.
So basically, Darren got just over a year before the engine warning light started to flash, and despite several attempts to fix the issue under warranty, including one repair they said was covered, Darren's then being told that the problem isn't included and faces a hefty bill. Joining us now is the complaints resolver, Scott Dixon. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Holly.
No better man for the job here. Scott, you have heard Darren's story. So he bought the car from a dealership. He paid for this 4-year warranty. He's then having engine problems just over a year in. Does he have a strong case for challenging the dealership?
Absolutely, Holly, and I call this the great warranty myth, and I hear this all the time. The warranty doesn't cover it, you're out of warranty, and it's a load of rubbish, to put it politely, because the Consumer Rights Act 2015 overrides any warranties, and it gives you a statutory implied warranty for up to 6 years, regardless of mileage or age of the vehicle, and nobody ever needs to buy a warranty for that reason. And the Consumer Rights Act 2015 states that goods sold must be fit for purpose, as described, satisfactory quality, and last a reasonable length of time. And within the first 30 days, you have what's called a short-term right to reject faulty goods, although the onus is on you to prove it. But this can be obvious, for example, engine warning lights. And any faults found after that, and within the first 6 months, are considered to have been there at the point of sale. And the dealer must prove otherwise. And that's what's referred to as the reverse burden of proof. And after 6 months, the onus is on you to prove your case. And an independent, reputable garage will suffice. And given that Darren is a mechanic, he will be able to get that evidence to prove his case. And given that this has gone on for quite some time with, multiple faults and attempts to repair it, traders only get one crack to repair the same fault. And that's under Section 49 of the Consumer Rights Act 2015, which states that services must be carried out with reasonable care and skill. And if it occurs again, you can go for a final right to reject under Section 24 of the Consumer Rights Act 2015. But it's easier said than done. And given that we are, I think it's 3 years down the track with this, the longer it drags out, the more difficult it is to prove your case.
In this case, the dealership did do one repair under this warranty and then came back and said, well, okay, the issue is now not covered whenever he came back with the same thing. I mean, can they do that? Can they kind of pick and choose what's covered and what's not? Fix it one moment?
No, they can't. And manufacturers' warranties are generally very good, but off-the-shelf warranties are not worth the paper they're written on. And dealerships often fob off consumers by saying, oh, it's a warranty issue, the warranty doesn't cover it. But the Consumer Rights Act 2015 overrides that. And the most common fob off I hear in these situations is wear and tear. So given that we are quite some time down the track, you need to preempt that with an independent report from a reputable garage to prove otherwise.
That's funny, because whenever, and this is what I found with Darren's case, when you see that a car, you spend 18 grand in a car, it's only got 16,000 miles since purchase, you feel like that should be relevant in some way. So when they come back and say wear and tear, and you feel a bit like, well, it's 16,000 miles, I would expect to get a little bit more. Is that fair?
Yeah. It's not fair at all, is it? From Darren's perspective, and a car that's only done 16,000 miles in 3 years is low mileage, and if serious faults have occurred during that time, it does point to a lack of durability, especially if it's been serviced and maintained. And this just doesn't sound right at all. And what I always ask is, how did you pay for it? So if you paid at least a deposit by credit card, you can hold the credit card provider jointly liable under Section 75 of the Consumer Credit Act 1974. And again, it is easier said than done. And if it's on finance, the finance company bought the defective goods from the trader, but I've seen finance agreements that have been deliberately sold as personal loans to circumvent this.
In Darren's case then, if a dealership up to a point is refusing to contribute to these repairs, or they're quite simply saying, sorry, it's not covered under your warranty, what can you do?
Well, Darren could check to see if the garage is a member of the Motor Ombudsman. So they may be able to assist, but if he has either put a deposit down by credit card, or if the car is on finance, he can go down that route and pursue the claim through the finance provider, either the credit card provider or the finance company. And if they reject it, he can ask for what's called a deadlock letter, which is a final response. And so he can take the case to the Financial Ombudsman Service so they can make a ruling decision. And it's free to use the Financial Ombudsman Service. And they are generally fair, and the success rate is usually about 35%, generally on cases that they review across the board.
So what I'm interested in too is that, if you're taking out an extended warranty or any sort of warranty, you're saying it's a load of rubbish, really. I mean, that's for people listening to this. Are they ever worth it? And what circumstances would you ever want to take out a warranty or an extended warranty?
Well, I wouldn't take out an extended warranty because generally they're not worth the paper they're written on, Holly. Manufacturers' warranties are generally very good, but off-the-shelf warranties are a waste of money, in my humble opinion. I stand to be corrected. But if anybody's trying to sell you an extended warranty, put it to them, what does this warranty give me that overrides my Consumer Rights Act?
Wow.
Consumers' rights under the Consumer Rights Act 2015. Because that is a statutory implied warranty that covers you for up to 6 years. And that gives you better protection for free. Nobody ever needs to buy an extended warranty.
That's great advice, Scott. Well, look, we did get in touch with the dealership, as you can imagine, and we talked to them about Darren's case. They never actually got back in touch with us directly, but, and it's a big but, they did get in touch with Darren, and this is what happened.
It was last Friday. I had a link come through from the repairing dealer to pay the bill. So I just thought, okay, I need to settle this. I paid the bill. And literally, after 20 seconds after paying the bill, I had a call from the selling dealer. And they said to me that they've said they've spoken to the warranty company, and the warranty company has agreed to cover 50% of the cost. So I was very happy with that, because I was concerned and I was willing to proceed and go down the small claims court. and 50% was what I'd asked them to to contribute towards the repair. We're over the moon, so that means me and my wife can put that money back towards our holiday fund and hopefully get a holiday this year. And it makes paying your TV license well worth it, and it makes life so much easier just having that little bit of support from the BBC.
So, just after paying the bill for his car repair, Darren then got an email from the dealership offering to cover 50% of the cost. After all of this, feels a bit like not a full win, but, it is a result that he only got by pushing back and standing his ground. Scott, what do you make of that, for getting 50% off?
That's probably a fair resolution. I would accept that under the circumstances. But if they didn't provide any resolution at all, I would have reported them to trading standards, because they are always interested in hearing about these cases. Yeah. And also look on Google reviews for what other people say about this garage, because I did that recently. I was asked for advice on, and it's always interesting to see what other people say on Google reviews about dealerships.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a reminder, isn't it, that it's always worth asking these questions. It's always worth challenging any decision. And as Scott says, it's worth knowing your rights, because that sometimes pays off. You're listening to Consumer Fight Back with me, Holly Hamilton. With me is Scott Dixon this morning, motoring expert from the Complaints Resolver. And Scott, while we have your expertise with us here and all of your car consumer knowledge, we have another car-related question for you. And this one intrigues me. One of our listeners got in contact with us, and it sounds like he's had a pretty tough time. So Matt is a driver with over 4 decades of clean driving behind him. He bought a brand new car last October with a full 3-year warranty. And every time he's had an issue in the past with a car, the dealership has really looked after him. They've fixed the problem and given him a courtesy car while his car was in the garage, up until last week. This time, he was told he couldn't have a courtesy car because he'd recently turned 86. Well, the dealership blamed their insurance provider, who reportedly refused to cover him due to his age, despite the fact that Matt holds a valid licence, he is medically cleared to drive, and hasn't had a single claim in 45 years. So, Scott, have you seen this before? That someone can no longer get a courtesy car because of insurance. Can the dealership now deny him one purely because of his age?
Well, it's an interesting question, Holly. And just because someone is over 85, it doesn't mean to say that they should be cut off from help with a courtesy car. And insurers need to justify these restrictions. They can't just hide behind small print. And a legal age ban, it may be a common policy restriction, and although there is no law preventing drivers over 85 from having a courtesy car, insurance companies often impose these age restrictions due to a perceived higher risk and cost, particularly when the courtesy car is provided via a third-party supplier. And we don't all suddenly lose our reflexes at 80, and it's not a switch that flicks off. And some older drivers are sharper and more cautious than drivers in their 20s. And it is about fitness. I see it as about fitness, not just necessarily birth dates, although insurers do risk profile based on algorithms and previous claims. And although he hasn't had any claims and he's got a clean driving license for decades, insurers are deliberately vague about how they do their risk profiling for fear of discrimination.
It sort of feels harsh, doesn't it, that there's just this cut-off, that he turns 86 and, He has to, we know legally, he has to renew his licence every 2 to 3 years. So he is being tested. He's been declared fit to drive. He hasn't had a claim in 45 years. So it does feel slightly unfair that car insurers can just set a limit like this. It does feel slightly discriminatory.
You're right, Holly, and I agree. I mean, these are contractual terms, and it can be viewed as age discrimination under the Equality Act 2010, and they should be challenged. And I always push back on these types of disputes by asking, please direct me to the paragraph in your terms and conditions you are relying on, which says you cannot provide me with a courtesy car due to my age. And ask them for a copy of the terms and conditions with this paragraph highlighted that explains why they can't provide a courtesy car because of his age. And it makes it much more tricky for firms to rely on generic fob-offs with contract disputes. I would complain to the insurer, not the hire company, and I would cite unfair treatment and a potential breach of the Equality Act 2010 and push on the discrimination angle. And if it's unresolved, you can escalate it to the Financial Ombudsman Service because they do often uphold complaints where insurers apply unfair terms.
Scott, great to chat to you as always. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks for the invite, Holly.
No, lovely to chat to you there. And that is Scott Dixon, the complaints resolver. And there's definitely a theme here, pushing back, asking the questions every time. Don't take no for an answer and make things completely clear. And look, if you are buying a car with a warranty in our previous case, or, relying on courtesy car cover, just make sure that you do check the fine print and ask the dealership directly if there are age limits or exclusions. Because, as Matt found out, sometimes the real roadblock isn't mechanical, it's in the policy.